Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Toolbox Extra on the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with this week's guest, but as always, I want to give a shout out to my great sponsors. Now, you've heard me say before, these are all great companies. They're companies that you should have working for you. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our Toolbox Extra guest, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Huddle. Now, I used Huddle for years as a football coach, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure we were a Huddle school. And our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just love the platform. Go to huddle.com. Turn your school into a Huddle school and join the millions of users. That's huddle.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper is the modern marketing platform that makes it easy for any athletic department to look like they're Division I, look like they're professional. Gipper is used and trusted by over 20,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com to get started. Let's say thanks to Booster Hub, the #1 Booster Club software program. Things like sponsorship fees, concession sales, booster volunteer signups, boosters changes. Okay, you know it's going to happen. Nothing falls through the cracks. Everybody stays connected, and your boosters know what's going on. Give them the platform they need. Give your boosters the platform they deserve, and that platform is Booster Hub. We also want to say thank you to Hometown. Hometown continues to be a leader in education-based athletics with their solutions that include things like, well, digital ticketing, of course, but how about fee-free fundraising, athletic website construction? The Hometown list just goes on and on. Whether you're a principal, an athletic director, or even a coach, Hometown's going to show you how to save time, how to raise more money, and how to bring your community together. You're going to find it all at hometown.com. We also want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys. Now, at my school, we use surveys for just about everything, for student athletes, for coaches, for parents. And the information that came back on these surveys, almost always over the top positive, and it'll be the same for you. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. We also want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio, but guess what? My assistant AD did, and it was a great experience. Go to Ohio University's website. Check out their online masters in athletic administration. We also want to say thank you to Home Campus. Scheduling, rosters, results, communication, facilities. Home Campus does all of this and more, and it does it better and does it faster than the other platforms. Did I mention athletic eligibility and clearance? That one alone is a game changer. Go to homecampus.com to get started. And don't forget to mention the Educational AD Podcast. Let's also say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and Beacon Creative. Now, Vital Signs Wall of Fame has been helping schools bring their legacy to life for over a decade, but Beacon Creative takes it to a whole new level. They're a content creation service, and they're going to take your stories, your teams, your history, and turn it into compelling narratives that you can post on your social media. You really got to see it to believe it. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and click on Content Services. You're going to be glad you did. Vital Signs Wall of Fame. And let's say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an AD. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and don't forget to tell them you heard about it on the Educational AD Podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going up to West Virginia, and we've got a recurring guest. We've got a number of people that they did such a great job. We keep inviting them back. Our guest today is Sean Blumette. Regular listeners will certainly recognize that name. Sean's a certified master athletic administrator, longtime AD in West Virginia, but now he's got a new title. Also very active at a state association. Was very blessed to be able to go up and speak to the West Virginia ADs a year ago. They do a great job up there. But Sean Blumette, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Yeah, great. As always, great to be back. Great to always touch base with you, and just feel honored that I've done well enough to be a recurring guest. So.
Well, it's totally selfish on my part. We always bring back the best people. I mentioned to our listeners, you got a new title. You are now a principal at is it Weir High School in West Virginia? Just real quick, what prompted that move from AD to principal?
Well, as I told my former outgoing best friend / principal, when he told me last spring that he was thinking about, or last summer actually, he was thinking about leaving, he took a job, moved on up to the county office, called me in and said, "Hey, I think I'm going to do this, and you want to move down the hall?" And I'm like, "Not really, but okay, let's talk." And had good conversation. And honestly, Hancock County Schools, Weir High School's been great to me. Only been in town here 2 years. Came up last year as the AD Dean of Students. Had a great experience here. Really tight-knit community up here in the northern panhandle of West Virginia. And career-wise, this is about where I should be. 25 years in. If this, take a shot, right? And felt a really good support network. And I was fortunate. And I said part of the reason I took the job was that the 3 principals who preceded me are all still with the county schools. So I had a great support network. If anything happens, I could reach out. They're here in town. They stop by the building, and they know what I'm dealing with. And so when I call it the question, it's like, oh yeah, I remember doing that for the first time. so yeah, it was really good. But that's really what prompted it. It was actually a late summer last year. I didn't actually move into this role until July 30th of last year. So
hit the ground running.
Yeah. So I was actually finishing up the last year as the AD, wrapping up the summer and getting ready for August. And July 30th rolls around, and I moved my office down the hall, and here I am.
Well, you talk about great resource. I'm sure whoever your AD is has a great resource in you sitting in that principal's chair. We always talk about that relationship between AD and principal. It's just so crucial for success. So whoever that AD is, he's very lucky to have you as a leader.
And I'll give him a shout out. Dickie Schilling is a guy who I actually got to work with when I was in my former role at Brook as the AD. He was the AD up at Oak Glen, which is in Hancock County Schools. It's one of our sister high school. And when I moved on up, and he reached out, and he was looking to get back in county, and brought in a guy with 6 or 7 years experience, 2 years as a building principal over in Ohio. Wanted to come back in and done a great job. And the biggest problem that we have, and I sat down with him at the beginning, I said, "Dickie, the biggest problem you're going to have is telling me when to shut up and go away and let you run the department." I said, that's yours now. And but yeah, we share a lot. And as you mentioned earlier, I still stay involved with the ADs Association and our state association as much as I can. A little bit different perspective now, but we talk, and like I said, our offices are right 2 doors apart, and we talk to each other literally daily. So yeah, it's great to have his expertise coming back into the building and into the county. And he's also seen from my perspective as a former building principal. So he brings that perspective with him, and I can give him some of my AD knowledge when he needs it. So yeah, it's a great working relationship, and you're right, that relationship is tremendously important.
Wow. Oh, well, again, it sounds like things are rolling along for you. You mentioned wrapping up the school year. So a year ago as an AD, you were wrapping things up, and here we are. It's May. Grades are coming in, playoffs are wrapping up. Graduation may or may not have already happened at your school. I know it's happened at some schools down here in Florida, but you mentioned that you wanted to share some tips, some observations, some best practices for our listeners on how to not just wrap up the year, but also maybe get a head start and prepare for next year. So I'm going to step out of the way. What do you got for our listeners on this episode of Toolbox Extra?
And just to give you, a taste, you mentioned some of the things, and we had talked before we got started here. Just today. Today is our last day for our senior grades. Grades are getting transcribed. Senior rankings are coming out. We're doing all that prep work. Our senior assembly's coming up. 8th grade move-up day was today. Graduation is next Friday night. So we got all those things going on, and we still got to finish our underclassmen. On the athletic side, our softball team and track team are on their way down to states. Track's leaving tomorrow, and softball's leaving, I think, Monday to go down to Charleston. So they got 2 or 3 day stays ahead of them that we've got to prep for. There's a whole lot of things right now that no matter which seat you're in, whether it's principal or AD, in our AD, like many, has their hand in a lot of the school activities. So we just got out of, the spring musical season, and our drama club had their spring show. So he was involved in doing that. But to get to this point, it's critically important. It's so easy to say, oh, we'll put it on a calendar, write it down. Well, that's fine, but you've got to pay attention to that. Deadlines sneak up on us. Deadlines are always going to be there. They're part of the educational process. They've been that way for hundreds of years now. But you have to have that deadline in mind, or those tasks in mind, so that you can set that agenda. We knew today was the day that these grades were going to close. We had to make some special arrangements. We knew the track team was getting ready to leave. So, all of our checks had to be done. All of our purchase orders had to be issued. All of our stuff had to be taken care of. So we had that on that progression. All right. We had qualifiers. We know who's going. We know how many are going. We know our room bookings. We know all that. And that's not something you can wait until the day before, the day of. So part of being ready to wrap up is knowing, what do I have to do to wrap up? When do I have to have it wrapped up by, and how much time am I going to need? And which part of my team has to be involved in that? On the athletic side, it takes literally 5 of us to make sure the team, starting with the coach, through the athletic director, then to make sure they're approved for their overnight trip. That takes me going to the board. And then my attendance secretary, who's been a rock and a rock star through this whole thing, has to make sure all the kids' absences are recorded and their school travel, and it's approved, so they're not getting penalized for missing. And then we have to figure out the financial end. So our financial secretary then has to step in and do her part. So there is a lot of planning even before the wrap up begins. Now, luckily, we've done that, and we have some time over the next couple of weeks. Like most schools, we run on fiscal year. So everything that we do this school year has to be recorded and reported by July 1, like June 30th. So that's a very short turnaround from end of May to end of June, having to wrap up spring sports, academics, activities, finances, and all that. And that's why everybody really needs to understand their role and play that part within the process. So that's just a peek at what goes into the end of the year. So,
again, all of those, tasks, I think our listeners can relate to. As you've made that transition from AD, which we talk about going from coach to AD, coach, you're worried about your team, you're kind of laser focused. AD, it's a more global picture. Now going to the principal position, obviously academics is big, but at the same time, we say athletics is the front porch of the school. How has your perspective changed, or let's say modified, going to that principal office that's just two doors down from when you were the AD?
Well, it's very true what you said. As the AD, it's you're heading up your department, and that's your priority. As principal, when I'm looking at athletics now, I now have to look at it from not the 5,000 foot view, but the 30,000 foot view to say, okay, how does this affect everything else? How does these student athletes' absences affect their classes? How does it affect the teacher schedules? Or do we have couple of our track coaches are teachers here in the building, so they're going to be gone for 3 days, during this time of year. So now, okay, I approve the trip. I get the trip sent in. Now I got to do I have a coverage for their classes? Am I getting a sub? What's going to what do we have to do to move it forward in a positive direction without taking away from the rest of the student body? So yes, that perspective has really widened out for me over the last year. One thing that I never, it sounds minor, but and as an AD, you're thinking, oh, this is great. We're going to do every team that goes to the state tournament, we do a send off, right? We get the student body out, we get the band, cheerleaders, the whole thing going on. And then you heard for the first time this year, I paid attention. I don't say I paid attention, but I actually listened to the complaints and said, well, we're missing class time. Oh yeah, we are, aren't we? Okay, what can we do to make that better? Because as an AD, I'm not necessarily thinking, they're missing algebra class for this. Well, now as the principal, I have to sit down and say, oh yeah, we've missed algebra class, we've missed geography or whatever subjects the kids are missing. How do we do what we need to do without being totally disruptive of the rest of the school day? So that really has changed the perspective. The idea that we want our student athletes to feel supported, and we want them to get on and succeed and do well at their events, whether it's a softball tournament, track meet, etc. But also keeping that academic focus for when they're gone. That has really become more of an emphasis for me now. From looking at it from the principal's chair.
Mm-hmm. Looking at that end of school period, I think some folks, ADs or principals, even teachers, they see that last day and it's like a finish line, and they don't really think about the coming year. But I think good leaders are managing to put together, let's say, a schedule, if you will. Maybe it's a soft schedule of some definite downtime, absolutely, but also some productive time so that the start of that next year doesn't just hit them in the face when it comes. What are some tips that you've picked up over the years as an AD, now as a principal, that you can share with our listeners about, getting that downtime, but also not getting surprised, ambushed when the next school year starts?
Well, unfortunately, I think you're always going to get surprised. Something's going to jump out of the bushes at you. The only hope we have is we limit it. But one of the things that I very early in my AD career was to learn to work a season ahead, right? So when fall ended, we had already, winter was ready to roll. And we were starting on spring when fall ended. So now that once winter ended, we started on our fall schedules. We started on our football schedule, our soccer schedule, volleyball schedules. And we started that process back in December, right after Christmas, early January. So that those events that are coming up first are actually in the can, ready to go for August. So when we come back to school, all we have to do is confirm a few things, make sure that they're published, they're out there, and the details are handled. Transportation is taken care of, officials are taken care of. Those are little things that can be done a little bit later, but the big picture is already built. Along those lines also, we try to get our personnel straightened out prior to the end of the school year for next year, for the next season ahead. So do I need a coach? Do I need to evaluate a coach? Do I need to remove a coach? Most of the time we're looking to hire coaches because unfortunately coaching turnover in high school is a huge problem these days. So we've been actively pursuing those positions, especially for fall, so that we know over June and July they can begin to get ready for their seasons. One thing that sometimes gets overlooked are your material needs. Simple. Do you have uniforms? Do you have footballs? Do you have baseballs, basketballs, volleyballs, whatever season is coming next? I'd rather have those sitting here at the school than stuck on a truck coming out of Guatemala or wherever they're being shipped from. Because when August 28th rolls around and we're kicking off the first football game, we better have footballs here. So those have already been ordered. So that proactive approach to being a season at least ahead, that way, if you do have that surprise, something happens, you have a sudden resignation, a sudden schedule cancellation, you now have one thing to handle, not 20. Okay, so that was a lesson that I learned very early in my athletic director career, and that I've carried over into the principal role. And and a lot of times this time of year, we're doing multiple things. We're ending the 25-26 school year, and we're also prepping the 26-27 school year. So the same way athletically or academically, schedules are being built, academic schedules are being built, coaches are being hired, teachers are being hired to have them in place for August. And once you can get that, and sometimes that takes a year or two, especially if you're coming into a new role, a new building where, as I did in my first AD job, the organization was a little lacking. And a lot of stuff was done, I don't say seat of the pants, but last minute. But that was something that we put a very big emphasis on changing. And the best way to start to wrap up the year is to ensure that prep for your next season is ready.
Yeah, again, just great stuff. The whole failing to plan is planning to fail, something like that.
Yeah.
As you talked about hiring, I think the only thing harder than hiring a coach is keeping a coach these days. What are some things that you have done as an AD, now you're doing as a principal, to help retain staff? Maybe not just coaches, but also teachers as well in this climate. Any tips you can share?
Well, education, whether you're talking about education-based athletics or just education in the classroom, it's a hard sell for a lot of people to get involved and stay involved. And we see more and more, I call them, the midlife teachers. They get 4, 5, 6 years in and they've had enough. And one of the things that I have really learned, whether it's coaching or with our teachers, people go where they feel valued. So if you can express a little bit of gratitude, a little bit of thanks to your staff, your coaching staff, and make sure that they understand what a huge role they do play in the lives of your student athletes. And many times, and I'm sure, veteran ADs have seen it, and I'm sure you have, some of the better people that we have coaching, doesn't mean they win every game. Doesn't mean they always have winning seasons. Sometimes it's being able to hold a program together, or just increase the numbers of participants in a program. Yes, we want to ultimately see that success, but in some cases, just having that program and giving those kids a purpose of being involved is enough. And we will push them to build on that, and we will help them to build on that. We have a program, here, our bowling program that was started a few years, about 10 years ago now, had some really good success early on. Last couple of years, it's been down. We went through a coach transition, went through a couple little issues with them. But we have a good young coach in there, and he came in after his first year last year and was feeling a little down about it. And the conversation revolved around, okay, well, let's focus on, let's not worry about your wins and losses or how many state qualifiers you had or anything like that. Did you keep your kids engaged? Did they have a good, did they enjoy themselves? And were you instilling the values that we want to see as from our school, right? And if you're doing those things and the kids are getting a positive experience out of it and they're enjoying being a part of the program, even though they're maybe not winning, right? Everybody wants to measure wins and losses. Maybe they're not winning, but they're rolling personal best. So they're doing better than they ever have individually, but we just didn't have enough numbers to be a competitive team, right? And then we were able to use their experience to attract more for this year. And this year, our team got a little better. And hopefully that will now start to build and carry over. And our coach was in a much better mood at the end of this season because he started to really see that we weren't going to harp on him about, oh, well, you didn't qualify 10 guys for the state tournament. But you didn't have anybody quit. You didn't have any issues. You didn't have any major, parental episodes or blow-ups or conferences or anything like that. You managed your team, you managed your program, you're growing the program, and sometimes that takes time. And I think a lot of times in athletics, we don't have a lot of patience for it sometimes. But we also have to understand where we're starting from. And if we're starting from a spot that's okay, we were pretty good over here and we lost all of those good athletes, we're going to be in a little bit of a rebuild phase. So let's not get caught up on winning all of a sudden. Let's embrace the process, as they say, and let's build it. And I think the same thing goes, across the board, any sport. I look at effectiveness in many different aspects other than the wins and losses to talk to my coaches about what kind of job they've done. Are they involved in the school? Are they involved in the community? Are they are they instilling the lessons that we want our educational programs in our values, right? Are the parents seeing, is the community seeing? If a Weir High football player goes out and they're involved in a community service project, that's great, because now it paints everybody from the coach to the school to the AD to the kids themselves in that positive light. Or we don't want to see our kids out there walking down Main Street in Weird and going, oh, there's one of those weird kids. We don't want, we know what they're all about. No, we don't want that. Right. And that's part of what our mission is yes, we want to be successful on the field, but we also want to build those students of value and character also.
Now, again, great point. When you're doing the hiring, we're talking about hiring here, now for teachers before, as coaches, right. How much is, you've got a resume, you do the interview, and, you have your philosophy, you have your culture at Weir, and you know what you're looking for. This is going to be an impossible question, but how much do you value percentage-wise that this candidate, this future coach, future teacher, potential future teacher, already embraces your culture and the things that are foundational, philosophical building blocks versus, boy, this is a great leader, great motivator, but they're not quite articulating that they are online with your culture. Mm-hmm. What's the tipping point for saying I can coach this person up versus I don't know if this is going to be a good fit?
I think the biggest thing that I look for when I am doing any sort of hiring is I want to see I want you to show me. I want you to show me something in that resume, in that packet, that says this is what I've already done and this is what I want to do now. Or if you're a younger coach, this is what I've done under coach so and so. I'd like to continue this. Right. So whether you had the experience of doing it or you've had the experience of being part of it, if you can show us that this is something that you believe in and that fits into what we're looking for, I will absolutely lean towards that coach with similar, let's say, experience or X&O knowledge. I want the best person. I can take a great person with some good ideas and make them a pretty good coach with some development, with some time, with a little bit of guidance. But if you have a great coach that's not a real good person, it won't last long. It will not last long. They may have success on the field, but you see very quickly that maybe they talked about doing certain things, but it never happened. And when you look back on it, the evidence wasn't there to begin with. But they were given a job because they were very successful on the field. And sometimes that other stuff gets glossed over. Well, I'm looking very hard at that other side. You said if it was a percentage, I'd probably say 70-30. Give me that 70% of good person, decent plan, has some experience either leading it or being part of it. And that's why, we talked about like legacy coaches. Is there an athlete or that played for a coach with those values that came from that kind of program that wants to now bring that to Weir High School? And the same thing in the classroom. If you've worked under a great staff or a great administrator or part of a great department, that you can show me, hey, I've had experience dealing with or leading these kind of things. I've only taught this subject for 2 years. I'm not the greatest at algebra or whatever, but I've done this and this and this and this to help build the kids into better people. The teaching part will come, professional development will come, coaching development will come with experience. But you can't change a person into if they're not a good person and they don't have a good background, you're not going to, at this point, you're not going to change that.
Yeah, I phrased that in an impossible way. I was pretty confident about what your answer is. I remember as an AD in Tallahassee, we would get students, undergrads, some grads from Florida State, and they were great kids. Don't get me wrong, but occasionally, here's maybe a 21-year-old undergrad, very enthusiastic, telling me as the AD, almost 40 years into the business, how they were going to run things and how this and that. And I'm going, well, this is really what we're looking for. This is a middle school assistant coach job and, teaching fundamentals. And it was just, it was humorous and also frustrating to sometimes see, where they were coming from. But again, we had some great kids come through our program and they all did a wonderful job.
And honestly, Jake, if you can get some of those great kids, and like I said, nurture them, develop them, guide them a little bit, hopefully get them, some of the best experiences I've seen with younger coaches is when they're able to have, some other veterans even in the building that can sort of take them under their wing a little bit, and again, not necessarily on the X&O side, but talk about the programmatic, the community, and the building culture with them. When we're looking for hiring, and whether it's teaching or coaching, and it comes down to best fit. Do your ideas mesh with what we want to do? And a lot of times that's hard to glean out of a 45-minute or 1 hour hour-long interview. When you're sitting across the table from somebody, but it's something that reveals itself very quickly as you get to know somebody.
Oh no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And again, sometimes it's that challenge. You've got this enthusiasm, you've got some knowledge, maybe in a sport they played baseball or whatever it was, and you take that person on, as a challenge. I'm fond of saying in one of my presentations to ads, when you hire that young coach, whether it's 22 or 32, when you hire that young coach, they might not walk in your door as a Hall of Famer, but with your mentoring and your leadership in 15, 20 years, they might walk out as a Hall of Famer. So it's kind of on you too.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's that's one of the reasons why I wanted to stay involved, even moving into a principal role with the ADs Association, with our local OVAC conference, with our state activities association, because I do feel that someone like myself, and I admit it, hey, I've been doing it, I'm going on 12 or 13 years. I know I don't do everything right. I know I've made mistakes, but I want to share that experience, and I want to act as that mentor for some of these coaches and some of these other younger ads coming up, which is part of the reason why I'm so grateful that like yourself, give me the opportunity to come on and share some of these ideas, just to get some of that out there, because like I said, I know I don't know it all. I know I've made mistakes, but a lot of times we make mistakes, and then we can share those and help somebody else from or save them from making that same mistake down the road.
Yeah, great points. Sean, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more about being an AD or about that transition to the other office a couple doors down, what's the best way that they can get connected with you?
Yeah, I'm here at Weir High School. You can look us up. We are on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. My email, if you can put it up on the screen there, or when you publish, but sblumette at k12.wv.us. I know that's a mouthful and a lot of dots, but love to talk to anybody. I'm active on social media. Find my profile. Feel free, shoot me a message. I will gladly share what I can, talk to whoever I can, and love to stay involved.
Well, Sean, we appreciate you staying involved for us on the podcast. All the best, as we mentioned, wrapping things up. And for listeners, I didn't mention this. You're listening to this podcast episode less than 24 hours after we recorded it. We recorded it on May 20th. So, we appreciate you listening. Just a reminder, we upload all of our episodes to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel, and we appreciate you listening. So thanks for tuning in on this one. We'll see you, and Sean, we'll see you later on the Educational AD Podcast. Thanks for listening. Hey, always a great time with Sean Blumette. Make sure you check out his other episodes on the Educational AD Podcast. Before we go, of course, we want to give one more shout out to our great sponsors. Now, remember, these are companies that you should be using. You should have them working for you. They're all great companies. Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Hometown, fundraising, digital ticketing, their list just goes on and on. Check out hometown.com. Booster Hub. If you got a booster club, you should have Booster Hub. Go to boosterhub.com to find out how they can help you. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes, your coaches, your parents, you're really missing out. Check out athleticsurveys.com. Huddle. I used Huddle as a football coach. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. Check out huddle.com. Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Check them out. Home Campus. It's a platform you're going to use every single day. Check out homecampus.com. Vital Signs Wall of Fame and Beacon Creative. It's a winning team that you should have working for you. Go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and click on Content Services. And finally, Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let them show you how to turn your social media account into a destination. That's Gipper.com. Thanks as always for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.